Just trying to get used to navigating while I'm live. And I think in certain ways it's cathartic. Helps me get things off my head and onto the screen. And I did some impromptu lives, I think either this past week or we're still in the current week. For me, Sunday starts my week. Don't know what everybody else does, but that's how I roll. So to follow up on the discussion about my pecking order, because I tend to tangent and ramble and go into different rabbit trails. So apologies on that. So I, not by verbal declaration, probably verbal in the way I make certain purchasing decisions, dietary choices. I'm more or less carnivore, I would say 90%. And of course, going back to the story about the dietitian or dietitians, nutritionists, take your pick. I consider what they give me a lot of the time. I don't know if I'll latch on to the advice. Don't know if I buy into it wholesale. But what I do know based on previous research, previous following of discussions when I was in the community for when I was, this was back in 2011, 12, or 13, I come to realize, and this is something marketing, especially in American marketing for nutrition, food, sustenance, take your pick, that we all look at the virtues being extolled and we don't look at I think I'll call them the costs to obtain that side of the coin. And you have to consider both sides of that one coin. And what I'm getting at is, take for example, fruits and vegetables often touted. Take your pick of what side of the aisle, what movement or movements one ascribes to. But for all the virtues extolled for vegetable, fruit A, B, C, D, or E, take your pick. People don't look at the other side of that and say, well, what do I do to draw out? How do I make accessible those benefits, those virtues? And it takes work. It takes time and work. And I can make a positive spin of that. And hello. Hi, guys. Isaac. Why am I alone? I live by myself. Live all by myself. I have been that way since 2011. In certain ways, I wouldn't trade it, but I've had roommates in the past. Those work, and and I had a previous experience where it didn't work. So, it is what it is. So anyway, so going back to the whole two sides of the coin. So take fruits and vegetables, a lot of virtues, antioxidants, anti-cancer effects. Well, what do I do to draw that out? And Dr. Anthony Chaffee puts it bluntly. Now, is it easy for me to be, I'm an impressionable guy, so what he says, it's to the point, very straightforward. That, hey, plants, whether fruit or vegetable, they do have what are known as anti-nutrients, or some might dare say toxins. My favorite thing is Popeye. So talk about in-product advertising or in placement advertising. Do I play video games? Yes, I actually was testing. Hey there, I think it looks like Sunny. I'm still testing the waters of using YouTube on my phone. No habla español. Because of my background, Philippine background, there is some loan words from Spanish that we could understand each other on, but I'll say words and connect the Spanish loan word, and then you might make a sense of it, you might not. So, as far as video games, I was going to say I actually tested out a third party Xbox wired or Xbox 360 wired controller I picked up at a local Value Village. As far as video games, I play retro consoles. I I've just tested my wired third party wired controller on my Steam library. The Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Edition. I played that for like a few minutes and tested that. So anyway, going back to the discussion of plants, fruits and vegetables, they require work. And going back to my Popeye example, in they call it placement advertisement in product or in placement advertising. So what was Popeye known for? Spinach. So everyone was talking about spinach, spinach, spinach. You want to get strong like Popeye, because they would show Popeye eats spinach and saves the day. But if I were to inject what I know now about spinach, because it has a toxin, well, speaking of egghead, I gotta do some shaving on the around the edges there. And so, what I was saying, if I had my druthers knowing what I know now about spinach, because it has a thing called oxalates, and I think I brought that up in the last two impromptu lives I did, you have to do something, and I think Dr. Anthony Chaffee points out you got to cook it in dairy or cook it in milk so the calcium leaches. My day, I can't complain. Although I didn't sleep so well. To be honest, I was a little late. Shout out to Brandon, the anime guy. Usually the way I start my day anyway, my Saturday is usually starting to catch his live stream. So that's how I usually start my day. Not the best sleep last night, but I got up at a decent enough time. Got some workouts in. Got my coffee in, so I can't complain. Caught some YouTube videos. Um, Going back to Popeye and spinach. Knowing what I know now, as far as oxalates and spinach, that Dr. Anthony Chaffee says you got to cook it with some like dairy. You have to cook it with calcium so it can leach the oxalates off the spinach. Or a friend of mine said use lemon to take the oxalates out. But without knowing that, Popeye, in attempts to save olive oil, would have been in the hospital for kidney stones because of the oxalates. So that's one of the reasons why, in terms of my pecking order, what's the least amount of guesswork I would have to use? On top of that, the legwork involved in terms of physically preparing. How do I draw out my ability to get the most out of a fruit or vegetable? And I may use periods during the year or week, month, whatever, that I may use that to enjoy my food preparation. Because, take for example, beans. Let's talk about the virtues of legumes. Well, in order to draw out the benefits of legumes, you gotta do something called soaking or sprouting, like I do with my brown rice. I get the sprouted versions, and yes, it's more expensive, but what I spend in extra money, I save in time. So time equals money. So there's that. So that's another reason why, to cut out my guesswork, my legwork, it takes less energy, brain energy, to figure, okay, what's the most direct way to get nutrition? Well, I'm gonna get my hands on good cuts of meat, ground beef, fatty cuts of meat. So I've been buying stew meat, bacon, get the right kind. I usually go with an uncured variety. I spice it up myself later, and that's one thing missing from my late morning meal was I didn't have bacon with my eggs. But it just means, okay, All I got to do is buy those meat sources or buy those types of meat, fry them in a good oil, whether that's butter, ghee, or tallow. Guesswork out of the way, legwork out of the way. I don't need to do any pre-planning, pre-prepping, because even with my sprouted brown rice, another example is I have to wash the brown rice. I have to, after I thoroughly wash it, I have to let it stand in the water before I hit that button on my rice cooker. I have to let it sit for 30 minutes before I hit the button to cook it. And then cooking itself takes 40 minutes. So here's a little time saver hack. If you've got a rice cooker with a steaming compartment, I got one steamer set from Amazon, and I'm kind of kicking myself for not getting the right dimensions, but that's a way for me to double down on food prep and cooking. So hypothetically, I can stick some strips of bacon, or if I want to get chicken, I rarely buy chicken compared to the other meat, where I prefer red meat. And yes, pork is a white meat, and it is considered the other white meat, and it is biased in what is called omega-6, whereas red meat, the right red meat, you would get a balance or more balanced profile of omega-3 versus omega-6. And I'm still working through fish. I'm very particular about how food. Let's see here. My egghead. I still chuckle at that. So, is it going back to my day? Well, I can't complain because I got some exercise in. I had to swap out my CGM for the next round of 15 days of monitoring. And I think I mentioned in my other videos, it is a worthwhile investment. Particularly if I were to plug a couple of products, you got the Lingo from Abbott, and then you have the Stello from Dexcom. You can buy that from Amazon without needing a prescription. So that's one of the few over-the-counter things you can get. You just have to come with the understanding, particularly with Dexcom, they want you to understand you're not the type to need insulin. So, okay, at least for now, I don't. And I'm just taking it easy. I'm just jotting down my thoughts in my journal, as you might have seen in my other videos. So that's my day for you, Isaac. And it's still relatively young until I got to go to church tonight. Scheduled for a service at 6 in the evening. So out here on the West Coast, I got 2 hours and change to head out. And weather, looking out my window, I can visually say summer's over. So, yep. So yes, so in terms of the reductionist mindset, you might have seen in my Choosing My Hard playlist, I'm going to look at my playlist later on. I'm going to make sure. The one thing I'm also going to play with, and you might have noticed in my other videos, is somehow the algorithms are very peculiar about the video I shoot, live or otherwise, and they'll snip whatever segment they think is a highlight, whatever that means. And I'll generate a short off of that. We'll see what that does. And I'm aware of the insider baseball that Retro Blasting also talks about in terms of having, and I haven't worked on it yet, but maybe having a shorts-centric channel. I'm on the fence about that, but in light of what I'm doing and my studies that I'm undergoing, speaking of which, for those who are following my situation, so at least in my state, we have what's called the training unemployment insurance. So I'm working through that as well. So that frees me, if I get everything going, it frees me from having to tell the agency, hey, I'm looking for work this week, or I'm working every week. I have to show that I'm looking for work. They're to be of the understanding I am training so I can obtain future employment when the time comes. So that's where I'm at with that. So so far, so good. Um, so yeah, I that's kind of helping me manage various things throughout my last few weeks since my layoff, and and just taking every bit of free time, every bit of room I have to breathe. Because the reality is, once I get a job, my free time, whatever free time I've been given since then, all that free time I have received, that's going to be gone. I'm sure I'll find doors for other free time, but based on what I'm embarking on within the next weekend, I'm going to do a weekend workshop in some other part of town called St. John's. We're going to do a knife defense workshop, and it's not the same ones I've been doing in the last number of months. Short workshops. These are 2 day, weekend long workshops. So I'm priming myself for that kind of load. So that's where I'm at as far as that's concerned. So that's where I'm at. And yes, I've been intending to do something about my time at the Retro Gaming Expo. I'm going to be honest and say the shots. I don't know. I could be more keen, but because I only got to spend the 1 day, I wanted to get the most out of it. And I gotta say, I gotta do a better job of giving a heads up to the necessary parties about working around such a schedule, because when I had the availability and I had the flexibility to take advantage of the entire weekend, because even though the price was inflated, I'd still say it was good, still a good bang for the buck. $90 for an entire weekend worth of activities. Particularly when you get to the Friday afternoon portion, because around noon is when the doors open, and I think there are some vendors there just to give a heads up for possibly the next event, which is usually September, October. So when that comes next year, I'll probably tease some of that. Maybe I might run into some of you guys, but let's see. What do I like to do? Isaac, you mentioned, you asked, I think you're the one who asked me about video games. Yes, you were. I like video games. It's just that when I was working close to 8 to 12 hours a day, depending on what my project was at the time, I didn't have a lot of time. I don't know how old you are, Isaac, but as you get older, your day is so routine that you're pretty much working in the morning, depending on your shift style anyway. I've been working morning to evening a lot. So generally my mornings would be 8 a.m. and then I get off work, or I would clock out of my job maybe 5 p.m., 6 p.m., depending on what I had to get done. And then more often than not, you'll find me on a stream, or you'll find me tuning into a stream. Could I stand to do better in terms of getting my physical activity in? So I interspersed that when I did work from home, and I was able to weave in some exercising, some martial arts movements. So if I could, I would go to the dojo and get my martial arts on, because in some ways, because of the nature of a lot of work these days where people work from home, sometimes you need that respite, you need that escapade to another area outside of it. Whereas the home, before the remote economy became a thing, your home was your haven. Now it's wherever else. That becomes the haven. So for me, it likely would have been the dojo, or you might call MMA gym. Depends on the environment and the place where you learn and train a given style, whether that's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Kung Fu, boxing, Muay Thai. They have different names for it, but most traditional places they'll either call it a gun, dojo, or I think it's dojang in Korean. For those who study Taekwondo, uh, add a Q&A sticker. Hoping. Oh, just looking at the mobile app. So yeah, Isaac, I hope that answers your question. But as you can tell, I'm not an active collector, but I like getting mementos. In other words, uh, I like to something has to pull me, something has to engage me, it has to compel me, it has to draw something greater for me. Like I may not be out there like a lot of collectors in certain spaces of society. There's a collector culture, a collector community. Whatever floats one's boat, I just go, what speaks to me? What what calls to me? So I may have certain fandoms, like I like watching a good movie, but I am not the kung fu movie aficionado that many others are. So tipping my hat to that fat samurai guy, I gotta say, if you guys haven't heard of it, he was talking about the movie Seek. I don't know if he's pushed that video out to the general public, but that's a movie I'm eager to watch if it's going to be available in my town. It's a ninja movie, believe it or not, uh, done by the sons of the late show, I think late Sho Kasugi, the sons Kane and Shane. I think I got the names right. Kane and Shane Kasugi. Again, check out that fat samurai guy, and if he pushed that interview out to the general audience, great. But I think the trailer's out, so if you want to check out the trailer for Seek, do so. I mean, I don't know what the movie's going to be like from a critical standpoint, like a movie critic. But if it's something like a popcorn bucket movie where I can just sit back and enjoy, I think you might have seen in other videos where I'm just like my grandma, my late grandma. As she got older, she just wanted an action. She wanted action. So I'm kind of like that. If I'm going to watch a movie, I want something to just take me away. Particularly now, since we've been in the remote economy for as long as we have, post Rona, that I just want something to take me from my whatever of everyday life for that moment in time, for that hour, 30 minutes, or 2 hours. A good movie, a good experience will not let time be a factor. Whether in actuality it's 2 or 3 hours long. If it's well done, it will grab you. You will be sucked in. That's what a good movie, a good TV show, a good song, that's what it will do. You're not going to worry about how long this track's going to last. You're not going to worry about how long that movie's going to last. Oh, I generally like a good comedy. But like I said, depends. Most of the time, it's a good action movie. Um, it's just got to be a well done. Particularly when it comes to kung fu movies. Some kung fu movies will be all about the movement and the choreography, little on the story. Now, if I had to say, if someone said, Lester, right this minute, what's your favorite kung fu movie? Well, I'm gonna have to say one of two or three. Okay, it's probably known. I don't know if it's more known as Killzone, but I saw it as SPL or Sha Po Lang by Jet Li. It has Jet Li and Sammo Hung. And when you watch the movie from start to finish, and it does a good job of setting the scene and stage for the story, at the end, you'll see why it ends the way it does. What is my name? Oh, it's Lester. It should be on the channel there. Lester's Skeptic Tech Obsessions. Yep. Lester is my name. So yeah, and also I'm thankful for some people. They're brave where they when they put their tag, the at. Some people will just say an alias, or they'll put their name in there. Like for me, my alias is the at the skeptic tank. But you can change the name of your channel. And what YouTube should be doing is displaying what name you might have given your channel if you have one. So yeah, as far as going back to Chapeau Long, the action is top notch. It's not a lot of visible or evident. It's not clearly wire fu. You might see some of it in some of the sequences, but the the fight scenes are as realistic as one could have it. That's why I like it. Because Jet Li, being the kind of martial artist he is willing to go outside the box of typical kung fu movies, where you get a lot of this stylized and traditional movement. Some of that works, some of that does not work. Like, I mean, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was okay. The action was like okay, that's good for the time, but would I want to see the fight choreography again? Probably not. Too much wire fu for my taste. Let's see. That I like Acer every day. Are you talking about Ace Ventura, or what are you talking about in terms of Acer? Are you talking about the computer brand? I'd be more than happy to answer the question. I just want to make sure how you're posing the question or what you're trying to ask. So, yeah, I just want to make sure that way I can give you the a proper answer for it. Um, but what do you like to do every day? Every day? Well, I mean, I can make it more enjoyable, but I like prepping food. I like cooking until it took a while for me to like cooking again. I had an ex who was very picky in terms of how I prepped food, how I cooked it. Like there were days when she just wouldn't flat out eat it. And it's like, okay, what's the point? You know? And, and yeah, I appreciate that. I hope what I say is interesting, and hopefully you can glean some knowledge out of it, going back to the original reason for why I put this out there in terms of what I've been going through with my health recovery. And this goes back to the point about the reductionist mindset. It presumes you're starting from something already. So in terms of that, when it comes to food, I'm starting from the standpoint that I've already done whatever research I've done. I've also weighed the information I've been given that I'm recovering or I'm trying to reverse my insulin resistance. So you get all sorts of information and you talk to people within certain spaces. Oh, why thank you. Thank you, Isaac. I appreciate that. So, reduction. I got to work from a base. I have to work from a set to reduce. I have to without anything for me to strip away. What's there to strip away? You know what I mean? So there have been a lot of discussion, whether in my own circles in person. Oh, appreciate that, Isaac. Anything I can do to help. So when I was being inundated with a lot of info, whether in conversation or TV or internet, when it comes to dealing with certain afflictions, because I knew about my whole diabetes, insulin resistance for a while. I've long acknowledged that. And so you try to collect as much data and info as you can. And not that you try to stay on top of it, it helps to understand the reality is the information changes. And have I have traveled throughout the last number of years now. Like, I always joke about going to other parts of the United States. Everyone talks about going to New York because that's where all the big ticket, big name destinations are. But I've gone because of martial arts and other training. Like, I've gone to Idaho, I've gone to Tennessee, I've gone to Alabama, and where else did I go? Um, you know, layovers. You go through like certain towns, certain airports. But I've gone to Canada in the last 5 years, and got the one thing I appreciate about traveling by myself is that I'm not chained to another person's or another group of people's itinerary. And sometimes when you're chained to someone's itinerary, oh, no, I do not have children. I do have godchildren technically. I have a goddaughter and I have a godson. So in certain ways, I've been such a bad godparent, to be honest. I'm trying to be better at communicating with my godchildren, particularly since there have been years apart. So going back to my travels, going back to the whole thing about being chained to an itinerary, it prevents me from really either attempting to live on the land, live off the land, being trying to be more of a local. That's kind of like my mentality, whether that was going through Alabama or going through a really small section of Tennessee, where tactical response. Huh. I did with my first ex. I mean, we were really serious. I was almost going to marry her. I'm the one who proposed. But she was the one to break it off. And the one thing you'll find when you're getting to that point where you're about to make the deal official, meaning that you're going to seal the deal of marriage, there is a grace to just simply being engaged. And I know there's a danger to being overly hesitant. I get it. Because in an engagement period, and I've seen it happen, and I've seen things happen where people do seal the deal and they get married, but then it ends. Whether the engagement's broken off or the marriage ends up in divorce. So, and not to speak of anyone in particular, but I've seen or heard stories about people ending things. So going back to my first ex, I was getting close to marrying her. But as the conversation started, most of the time, nowadays it's trying to study naturopathy. Uh, Otherwise, it's just trying to be aware of what's out there without trying to be so hung up by what's out there. It's good to be aware, and the danger is being latched onto it, whether you intend to be latched onto it or no. Because the awareness as you get older and whatever wisdom you can pass on, you you got to do what you can, because you can. It's that it's that saying, you want to be in the world, but you don't want to be of the world, and that you're not so wed to the world. Because for the right disposition, if you're of the world, then you're carried by every care within the world. And as I'm looking at the landscape of, at least in my little area of the United States, a lot goes on, and it's easy to get angry. It's easy to get cynical, easy to get pessimistic. But I understand this has been going on forever. What state do I live? I'm in Oregon. I'm in Oregon. So um, I've been in Oregon since 2011. So I like my time here, and yet are there elements that make me go, if I had nothing else here, I could have easily left. Appreciate it. And so I've been blessed with the people in my life since I've been here. People on many levels who consider me family. Mainly because I'm the only one in my family up here. Everyone's down in California. Um, so, you know, I have to chuckle and be relieved that this is a spot where my parents actually say, "Hey, stay where you are." It's hard to get an approval from Asian American parents. For you Asians out there, I see you. I feel you. Um, so let's see, if you don't mind, what are the... Okay, so these two are Action Force. And the one, that one right there, that's a Macross figure. It's a Robotech figure. If I want to be official, it's a transformable one. And I'll say off the bat, since I've had it, the construction could have been a hell lot better. And I think this one right next to it is Planet of the Apes. Uh, and then what is the other one here? I think that one right next to Planet of the Apes is a Danny Glover Lethal Weapon miniature. I just got it at one of the previous expos. Um, I thought it was hilarious because I think I also got a Boba Fett or Peter Pan. I forgot which. Um, I just laughed my ass off because uh, I still remember that line. I think it was Lethal Weapon 4 with Jet Li, and they had that line, "Way too old for this shit." And it just, and if you look at the face, what is most of my content is about is, if you want to know, Isaac, real quick, it's supposed to lead people to a tip of a triangle because I have such a varied interest. So, like I talked about kung fu movies, I talked about real quick the Robotech Macross, so you kind of get an idea. I like my animation, and Action Force is like a continuation of, not a direct continuation, but it tries to follow along the same tradition of GI Joe, but it's a different scale. I like things, if you can see, yes, it's the Dawn as a bubblehead. I like a good chuckle. I like people who are not afraid of making fun of themselves. You know, that's one thing we're missing in today's society. We're all afraid of making fun of each other. But without that, you can't break the ice. You can't thaw out tension, you know, if you don't have a good joke to laugh at. So certain things, like right now, I'm on this lifestyle diet kick, and I try to weave it into a greater tradition because I'm realizing there's a lot of things we like that are just an aspect of a greater overall tradition, whether that's toys, pop culture, music, fill in the blank. A video with fun facts. Well, that would be fun. I will have to do my research and do my homework on that in terms of what's a fun fact. I mean, I could throw some things out there. I mean, uh, I am I am a I do have a certain status and position in my parish, or in my diocese rather, where I am technically a churchman, but I'm a very low ranking one. Technically speaking, because the order I'm in is what's called minor. So that's how it works. Okay. I'm on the mobile app just to let you guys know again, and I'm still testing this. One of the things I probably didn't update you guys on, uh, I have sinned maybe within, I think, months now. Months. It's been months where I decided given what I know about technology, the internet, Wi-Fi, wireless, so I'm kind of going into a different phase of this reductionist mentality, or the refinement process, which I tried to say it has to start from something. So I think I said my piece about diet, particularly why I'm about 95% carnivore, because just to sum that whole thing up, because I don't think I verbally declared my being carnivore like this is what I'm going to do. It just made the most sense. After all the scuttlebutt I've researched, all the stuff you learn about what does it take for me to bring out the best out of a vegetable or fruit, whatever that is. My guesswork, my legwork is greatly reduced when I just go, yeah, I just eat ground beef, or I just eat ground lamb, ground this, ground that, this kind of meat, pork loin, and okay, will there be some head work, guesswork involved? Okay, do I want the fat grass-fed variety? Do I want this variety? Do I want the label grass-fed just for the sake of being grass-fed? Okay, I'll make a decision. Or is my decision based on, okay, what's the fat percentage? Do I want a 85-15? Do I want 80-20? Do I want 75-25? That's probably the only guesswork I gotta do, and of course, what's in my budget. Okay, that would be the only level of thinking I have to do. Okay, what do I gotta do? What butter do I get? According to Ben Azadi, he likes Vital Farms. I go with Kerrygold just because that's what I've been using. I have yet to crack open my tub of lard, which I have. I have a photo. I might post it one of these days. So out of the way, it cuts down my thinking and my legwork. And I know I'm not as busy as I am or I was before my layoff. And so I don't really have an excuse to, I don't have the excuse I once did in terms of not having enough time. Now, in my spiritual tradition, we have a pending season where we're going to be asked to do certain things from a dietary perspective. I can get into a little bit more. But I think that's all I'll say as far as why I'm carnivore for the most part. It's cuts out a lot of the guesswork, a lot of the legwork. Okay, so going to technology. Okay, knowing what I know about Wi-Fi and knowing what I know about where I'm behind. Like, oh, I didn't know there was a new wireless standard. Okay, I'll go into that. I'll probably end this live and I'll make a separate one. Okay, guys, thanks for tuning in.